Picture this. You step outside your front door, and the afternoon sun is just, like, absolutely blazing.
Right, casting those really hard, sharp shadows across your lawn.
Yeah, exactly. You might even have to squint against the glare. But at the exact same moment, you're getting absolutely soaked by a torrential downpour.
Which is always such a jarring feeling.
It is, because the sky hasn't darkened at all.
Yeah.
There are no, ominous rolling thunderheads or anything.
Just bright, blinding sunlight.
Blinding sunlight and heavy rain falling simultaneously. It is a total sensory paradox.
It really is.
And if you are standing in the American South when this happens, and you ask someone to describe the weather, they won't give you some dry meteorological term.
No, definitely not.
They will likely look up at the sky and tell you the devil is beating his wife.
Which, it completely disrupts the casual nature of small talk.
Oh, completely.
You go from observing a quirky environmental occurrence to suddenly engaging with this incredibly ominous, violent piece of imagery.
Right.
The linguistic wrapper just completely shifts how you experience the physical environment around you.
And that jarring shift is really the central focus of our deep dive today. For you listening, our mission is to break down this deeply unsettling phrase.
It's a weird one for sure.
We're going to figure out how this specific collection of words became the go-to description for a sun shower.
And we'll trace its really bizarre migration across centuries and continents.
Yeah, and uncover why, like, foxes and monkeys are the global alternatives for this exact same weather anomaly.
Not to mention how this archaic piece of folklore recently managed to hijack modern pop culture.
Yes. Okay, let's unpack this.
So to understand the linguistic leap to something as dramatic as the devil, we first need to look at the physical phenomenon this phrase is trying to make sense of.
Right, the actual weather event.
Exactly. The meteorological term is simply a sun shower. But the human experience of a sun shower is much more complicated than the science suggests.
Yeah, I always think of a sun shower as being like a movie theater playing the wrong audio track for the film you're watching.
That's a great way to put it.
Like, the visual track your eyes are processing is a bright, clear summer day, but the tactile and audio tracks the water hitting your skin, the sound of the rain on the pavement. They're broadcasting a gloomy, dramatic storm.
Your brain is basically receiving two entirely conflicting pieces of environmental data at the exact same time.
It feels like a glitch in the matrix, like a short circuit in reality.
Right. And what's fascinating here is why human beings resort to myth to explain that short circuit.
Because we do it constantly.
We do. Psychologically speaking, our brains rely on categories to feel safe.
Oh, right.
We categorize the weather.
Right.
It is either sunny and clear, or it is dark and rainy.
Never both.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when those two opposing natural forces collide in the same physical space, it creates this subtle subconscious unease.
We realize something is off.
Yeah, we recognize that the natural order has temporarily broken down. So instead of just accepting that, the wind carried some raindrops a few miles away from a parent storm cloud.
Which is the boring, logical explanation.
Right. Instead of that, we invent a narrative. We craft an eerie story to match the internal unease we feel.
And the narrative maps the physical environment perfectly, too. We use a domestic dispute in hell to explain the confusion in the sky.
It's so literal when you break it down.
It is. The blazing, oppressive heat of the sun represents the devil's fire, and the falling rain represents his wife's tears.
The tension of the sun shower is perfectly mirrored in the tension of the metaphor.
Right, because the sun and the rain are opposing physical forces.
Just as the devil and his wife are locked in this mythological conflict, we are essentially using the darkest, most chaotic figures in our cultural imagination as a psychological coping mechanism for the uncanny.
It's wild, and because the phenomenon of a sun shower happens literally everywhere on the planet, you would assume this phrase has countless origins, right?
You'd think so, yeah.
But it is almost universally associated with the deep American South. Like, it feels intrinsically linked to Spanish moss, Southern Gothic literature, humid afternoons.
Oh, absolutely.
Yet the historical breadcrumbs from the sources reveal that this incredibly specific imagery actually started thousands of miles away.
Yeah, in early modern Europe.
Which is crazy to me.
The timeline is remarkable. The earliest definitive written record of this connection doesn't come from Alabama or Georgia in the 1800s.
Wait, really? Where is it from?
It comes from a French play written in the year 1703.
1703.
Yeah. Over 300 years ago, there is a line of dialogue that explicitly references the devil beating his wife during rainy weather when the sun shines.
Okay, but this raises a massive logistical question for me.
Sure.
How does a stray line from a 1703 French play cross the Atlantic Ocean and become like a foundational piece of slang in the American South?
Right, especially back then.
Yeah, we were talking about an era long before global communication or the internet.
Well, the mechanism of that transfer is human migration.
Hmm.
During the 17th and 18th centuries, large populations of French Huguenots, who were Protestants fleeing religious persecution in Catholic France, they migrated to the American colonies.
Ah, okay, so they physically brought the phrase with them.
Exactly. Many of them settled in regions like South Carolina.
Mm,
And you also have the heavy French colonial influence in Louisiana.
right, right.
So they brought their language, their folklore, and their colloquialisms with them when they came over.
And they drop this dark, evocative phrase into an environment that is already prone to incredibly dramatic, sweltering, unpredictable weather.
It was a perfect match.
The southern climate was essentially the perfect petri dish for a phrase like this to thrive and embed itself into the regional identity.
Yeah, it takes root there because the environment literally demands a dramatic vocabulary.
That makes so much sense.
But the phrase didn't just travel to America. It continued to mutate back in Europe as well.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because the evolution of this phrase takes a turn into the absurd.
It really does.
In 1738, so just a few decades after that French play, the famous Anglo-Irish satirist Jonathan Swift uses a variation of this expression in his writing.
Right, the Gulliver's Travels author.
Exactly. But Swift adds a deeply specific, bizarre detail.
Hmm.
He writes that the devil was beating his wife behind a door with a shoulder of mutton,
With shoulder of mutton, it's so weird.
a literal piece of meat.
Yeah, and the shoulder of mutton is one of those historic details that perfectly illustrates how colloquial language functions in the wild.
I have to challenge this premise, though.
Oh.
Yeah, because Jonathan Swift is the guy who wrote A Modest Proposal. You know, the satirical essay suggesting the impoverished Irish should eat their own babies.
Right.
He was a master of the grotesque and the absurd. So how do we know Swift was actually recording genuine folklore here?
That's a valid point.
Isn't it highly likely he just invented the mutton part? Or, like, even popularized the whole wife-beating devil concept in the English language just to be edgy and provoke his readers?
It is a fair skepticism, especially with a satirist like Swift. I mean, he certainly loved to shock his audience.
Exactly.
However, linguists and folklorists generally agree that in this specific work, it was a piece called A Complete Collection of Genteel and Ingenious Conversation. Swift's explicit goal was to catalog the absurd, everyday slang he heard people using in parlors and taverns.
Oh, so he was documenting it, not inventing it.
Right, he wasn't inventing the slang, he was mocking it by documenting it. He captured a highly mutated variant of the street language of his day.
Wow. So taking your earlier point about linguistic natural selection, this is almost like looking at the fossil record of an evolutionary dead end.
Yes, that's a great way to put it.
The phrase is basically a living organism. Some anonymous person in a tavern adds a shoulder of mutton to the joke because it sounds ridiculous.
And for a brief window in the 1730s, that mutation survives in the population.
That is wild.
That is the perfect way to look at it. If a community likes an addition, they repeat it, and the mutation spreads.
And if they don't, it just dies out.
Exactly, it falls away. In this case, the core genetic material of the idiom the devil and the contradiction of the weather survived the Atlantic crossing and thrived.
Well, the mutton, thankfully, lacked the staying power.
Yeah, it was bred right out of the language.
Which is probably for the best. But that idea of an idiom surviving only because it perfectly captures the mischief of the moment brings us to how the rest of the world handles this exact same sensory paradox.
Because the sky glitches everywhere, not just in France or the American South.
Right. And the global variations we found in the sources are incredible, and they rely on a completely different cast of characters.
They really demonstrate that the human impulse to mythologize a sun shower is a universal instinct, even if the cultural paint we use looks completely different.
Yeah, so like in Japan, the cultural paint is animal folklore. When the sun shines during a rainstorm there, it is called Kitsune no Yomeri,
Which translates to the fox's wedding,
the fox's wedding.
which is a brilliant cultural translation of the exact same unease. In Japanese folklore, the kitsune, or fox, is a highly intelligent, shape-shifting trickster spirit.
Ah, a trickster.
Yeah, they are famous for creating illusions and deceiving humans.
So when the weather itself feels like an illusion, you know, when it's raining but the sky is clear, it feels like nature is playing a trick on you. Blaming it on the ultimate trickster spirit makes total logical sense within that mythology.
It does.
And we see a very similar thread in South Africa. There, a sun shower is known as a monkey's wedding.
Another trickster animal.
Right. Monkeys are animals deeply associated with mischievous, playful chaos in the natural world.
So you have trickster foxes and chaotic monkeys.
Oh, yeah.
And then, circling back to Europe, we found that in places like Hungary and even parts of France, they combine the demonic with the matrimonial.
Oh, right. The mashup.
In those cultures, the devil isn't just beating his wife. He is beating his wife and marrying off his daughter at the exact same time.
I mean, the multitasking is genuinely impressive.
It really is a busy day in hell.
But putting the devil aside for a second, a massive recurring theme jumps out here.
The weddings.
The weddings. Japan has the fox's wedding. South Africa has the monkey's wedding. Europe has the devil's daughter's wedding. Why is everyone throwing a matrimonial ceremony during a sun shower?
It is a really interesting pattern.
A sun shower is a weird event, sure, but I don't immediately look at rain and sunshine and think about, like, catering halls and wedding vows.
Right.
Why is a wedding the universal, global go-to for this weather?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture of human anthropology, it actually makes perfect sense.
Really? How so?
Think about what a wedding fundamentally represents in human society, structurally speaking.
Structurally. Okay, it is two entirely separate families, right? With different histories and boundaries colliding to merge into a single unit.
Exactly.
It's a massive, chaotic gathering.
It is a threshold. In anthropological terms, a wedding is a liminal space.
A liminal space?
Yeah, it's a transitional event where the normal rules of daily life are just suspended.
Oh, I see.
And historically, transitional moments are viewed as dangerous. Boundaries are blurred. Emotions are running incredibly high.
And so a sun shower is the meteorological equivalent of a liminal space.
Precisely. It is a transitional sky where the boundaries between storm and clear day are unnaturally blurred.
Wow. So the colliding contradiction of sunshine and rain literally feels like a threshold moment.
Yes.
So we describe the weather using the ultimate human threshold ritual.
Exactly. We take the chaotic blending of two natural elements and map it onto the chaotic blending of two families.
And then the animals, the foxes and monkeys, they just amplify the sense that the natural world is behaving mischievously during this transition.
Right. They add that layer of trickery to the whole event.
That is fascinating. It transforms what seems like a random collection of Mad Libs, foxes, devils, monkeys, weddings, into a deeply structured framework for how human beings process chaos.
It really does.
Which brings us to the modern era, because we've spent a lot of time in the 18th century in ancient folklore.
We have.
But idioms are not just artifacts sitting in dusty library archives. They are living, breathing parts of our current ecosystem. And they have a habit of surfacing in the most unexpected arenas.
Yeah, and the modern afterlife of a centuries-old phrase often reveals more about our current culture than the phrase's original creation did.
That's so true. And the afterlife of the devil is beating his wife took a genuinely shocking turn recently.
Oh, definitely.
This archaic, dark, Southern Gothic phrase suddenly began trending online because it circulated as the highly rumored title for Ariana Grande's 8th studio album.
The journey from a 1703 French playwright to a 21st century pop star's fan forums is just a phenomenal leap.
It really is. So what does this all mean?
Bro.
Because the internet reaction was a fascinating mix, right? Complete confusion from international fans, and then sudden recognition from listeners in the American South who grew up hearing it.
Yeah, the divide was so clear.
But why would a massive pop star's team even consider attaching this bizarre, violent phrase to a commercial pop album?
This raises an important question about how modern media consumes and repurposes language.
What do you mean?
We tend to think of language as something strictly governed by definitions. But in pop culture, language is entirely about aesthetics and vibe.
Oh, 100%.
Pop music thrives on contrast. Pairing an upbeat, danceable production track with dark, melancholic lyrics.
Like dancing with tears in your eyes.
Exactly. And the phrase, "the devil is beating his wife," is the linguistic equivalent of that pop music contrast.
Oh, I see that.
Yeah.
It sounds folksy and conversational, but the imagery is inherently violent and dark.
Right. Furthermore, Ariana Grande is from Florida. She has Southern roots.
True.
So reclaiming a deeply regional, evocative piece of folklore gives a modern pop project a sense of grounded history, even if the vast majority of the audience has no idea about the French Huguenots or Hungarian devil daughters.
Yeah, the fans don't need to know the origin of the fabric to know the outfit looks good.
That's a great analogy.
They just hear a string of words that feels edgy, dangerous, and incredibly catchy. It proves that our words are alive. They are constantly shedding their old contexts and being repurposed for audiences far removed from the original intent.
They have to be to survive.
Right. Whether you are a farmer in the 1700s trying to explain a ruined crop or a pop artist looking for a viral aesthetic, the contradiction in the words perfectly matches the contradiction of the human experience.
And that adaptability is the hallmark of why certain folklore survives while others fade away.
Unlike the mutton.
R.I.P. to the mutton.
Yeah.
But we will always need language to help us process the uncanny, whether that uncanny moment is in the sky or, in a recording studio.
Which is an amazing place to bring this deep dive to a close. Think about the terrain we just covered today.
It was a lot.
We started with the sheer sensory glitch of standing in a sunny rainstorm.
Yeah.
We traced human migration to see how a French play infected the American South.
We interrogated Jonathan Swift's bizarre fixation on mutton.
We attended mischievous international weddings for foxes and monkeys and ended up analyzing the aesthetic choices of a modern pop star.
It is a testament to the wild, unpredictable journey of human language.
It really is. At the very least, the next time a sun shower rolls through your neighborhood, you will know the global weight behind what you're witnessing.
You will certainly never look at a sunny day with a sudden chance of rain quite the same way again.
You really won't. But before we sign off, I want to leave you with a final, lingering thought to mull over.
Okay.
The materials we reviewed made a brief but vital mention of climate change.
Right, which changes the whole context.
Exactly. As global temperatures shift and climate change creates increasingly unpredictable weather patterns, it is inevitably going to bring about storms, atmospheric anomalies, and sensory paradoxes that our species has literally never experienced before.
This guy's going to get weirder.
Much weirder. So, here's the question for you to consider. What entirely new eerie folklore and what brand new idioms will our generation be forced to invent to make sense of the new colliding forces in our skies?
That's a chilling thought.
It is. If a simple harmless sun shower gave us trickster foxes and a devil wielding a shoulder of mutton, what stories will we be forced to tell when the weather gets truly strange? Keep looking up.